Hey guys, Jay Hoyt here. Before we get into today's video, we tell you guys at the start of every single one of these videos that the vast majority of you guys are not subscribed. So make sure to go down below, hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, or if you're brand new here, turn on those post notifications so you never miss an upload. And don't forget, you can always change your mind later. What's on, guys? Jay Hoyt back with you today. Welcome back to Call of Duty Vanguard. We are back here on Ship House, Das House. I don't really know if there's a difference, but we are back here on the only map that I can tolerate playing. And we are back here with part 6. Yes, finally, part 6 of our CDL preseason preview. We have OpTic Texas, and we have our brand new team, the Boston Breach. So this one might be a long one. Maybe I'll split into 2 videos depending on how long it is. But first, let's start, of course, with my very, very close team to my heart, the OpTic, or I should say OpTic Texas, not the OpTic Texas. So let's start by saying this. So this team was actually 2 teams last year. So it was OpTic Chicago and the Dallas Empire. So let's start with OpTic Chicago, right? What did these guys do last year? So OpTic Chicago consisted of Scump, Envoy, Dashy, and Formal. The biggest team, biggest fan base that we've had, all the talent in the world, with 2 of the best players we've ever had, with 2 good young talents. So of course, let's start with what they did during this season. So in stage 1, they were 2nd in the groups, 4th at the major. Stage 2, 2nd in groups, 5th, 6th at the major. Stage 3, 4th in groups, 4th at the major. Stage 4, 2nd in groups, 4th at the major. Stage 5, 1st in groups, 3rd at the major. And then at champs, they finished 5th, 6th. So they were a really good team. They could beat most anyone, except for they could never get to the grand finals. You know, the top 2, you know, they only finished 3rd once, but other than that, they were kind of consistently like 4th, you know, placing 2nd in groups, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th at the major. Like, they were around that all year long. So they were consistent, at least, right? 4th at what, 3 out of the 5 majors, and then they had a 3rd place and a 5th, 6th. So that pretty much sums up their season. They were consistently good, but not good enough to beat Atlanta, to beat Toronto consistently. You know, even Dallas, then, you know, they never really could put that one together. So they were, like I said, they were a good team, but just never could get to that elite level. They were always a really, really, really good team, but just, yeah, couldn't get there. But either way, we move on to the Dallas Empire. So this consisted of Shotzi, Hook, Illy, Crim6, Vivid, and Fellow. Another team that had all of the right talent coming off of the 2020 World Championship win that they had. What could they bring to this season, though? Well, let's start with what they did in the all the events, I should say. So stage 1, 1st in groups, 2nd at the major. Stage 2, 3rd in groups, 3rd at the major. Stage 3, 3rd in groups, 4th at the major. Stage 4, 3rd in groups, 2nd at the major. Stage 5, 1st in groups, 4th at the major, and they had a 3rd place finish at champs. So another good team that was consistently at the top all year long. They did have a roster change, was like halfway through the season or something like that. So they ended up getting rid of Hook, and they added in Fellow for a little bit, and then eventually they added in Vivid for the rest of the year. But either way, following the season, right, this team, so following the season, OpTic Gaming and Envy have merged, which means OpTic Chicago and Dallas Empire basically merged as well. So if you want to know more about the OpTic and Envy merger, we did make a video about it. I will leave it as the what are the cards thing at the top, as well as in the description if I remember. So basically, NRG owned the OpTic Chicago CDL spot. Hex got OpTic back. He wanted to buy OpTic Chicago for himself and the OpTic brand, but eventually they merged it in a way where now OpTic and Envy are under the same banner, under under Envious or Envy Game. I guess Envy Gaming would be the right term for that. And now we have OpTic Texas. So what happened? Obviously, if two teams merge, you're going to have way too many players. So now we have OpTic Texas. Scump, Shotzi, Illy, and Dashy with Rambo Ray and Sender as the coaches. And once again, this team has talent. We know that. Couple of concerns, though. Here's the big thing. With Formal now retired, right? We didn't really mention it, you know, with the after the OpTic part there, but Formal is now retired. He might be competing in Halo now. Don't really know what he's doing yet. But here's the thing, and no Crim6 either, right? He was on this Dallas squad, Crim6 now with New York. Both of those players have been known to be the in-game leader for teams, or the IGL. Now you have Scump as the only veteran player. That's a little bit of a concern for me, because Scump's really never been a in-game leader. He's, you know, he puts in his input, but doesn't really, you know, he's not really that in-game. Let's make sure we rotate. Let's make sure to get this. Let's make sure to get that. He's like, okay, I'm slaying, I'm frying. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Like, he's not an in-game leader. But either way, then you have Illy, who's been known to make calls on that Dallas squad. But will he be doing that full time? I'm not really sure. Second big concern is, will Dashy be able to play like a disciplined main AR? As we know, there needs to be players that rotate. There's need to be players that play certain spots. And Dashy's not really a main AR. He's more of a flex that only plays with an AR. Does that make sense? So he plays more of the fast run and gun AR role. Like, he's a slayer. Don't get me wrong, but will he be able to play like an AR should do, instead of a flex, which is what he was, you know, prior to Illy coming on board. So predictions for this team: definitely top 6. I would say definitely top 4. Right? They have the talent. They have 2 coaches now, which definitely helps. Which is one of the biggest, you know, criticisms of them last year, was they only had 1 coach, so they only had 1 voice, only 1 set of eyes watching their gameplay. So now that they have 2, and Rambo obviously has been around forever. He's been a Call of Duty mind forever. And now they have 2 coaches, you know, like maybe 1 more to kind of match the, you know, the style of Atlanta FaZe, where they have 4. But even 2 or 3 would be probably more than enough. But then, yeah, we'd like 1 more in there. But who's going to compete with them? You have Atlanta, you have Toronto, maybe New York if they can find their form, LAG, LAT. I mean, there's a bunch of teams at the top. I think they can get top 4 consistently. You know, kind of like both of them. They were both at the top consistently all year long. And they were kind of similar stories. OpTic, a little bit on the downspout of that. But either way, they look good. Like, they've looked really good, you know, playing at least scrims. But obviously, those are scrims. This is preseason, pre-land, pre-events, the important matches. So obviously people are still trying stuff out. They're trying to do different things. So, you know, who knows what we're going to get once the season starts. But yes, top 4 team, prediction to be all year long at the top. No question about it. Our next team is going to be the Boston Breach, our newest team in this CDL. They're going to be debuting with the roster of Methods, TJ Haley, Nero, and Capsidal. Since it didn't exist, what did these players do individually last year? So let's start, of course, with the 2 most known players on this team. So you have Methods, who's going to be the main AR for this team. He was a starting player for Toronto for the first 2 years of the CDL, but never really found any type of consistent success like I said, in the Pro League. But last year, he played in Stage 1 of the CDL. They finished 3rd in groups, 9th, 10th at the Major. However, following the event, he got benched for Insight, where Toronto then went on to be a top team for the rest of the year. However, Methods dropped down to Challengers. He was a substitute for Toronto, and yeah, went to Challengers and didn't really do too much. I think he did like okay and decent, but not really like super well. Not like it's you know, consistent thing down there. But next player we have TJ Haley, was a starting player for the Los Angeles Thieves for the first 4 stages. Not really finding much success either. Did not play in Stage 5 or Champs. He dropped down to Challengers, playing with Methods for, I think, a little bit of that. Again, not finding much success. However, TJ Haley was considered one of the best rising star prospects of Call of Duty, but has yet to find a consistent team, a consistent success in the Pro League. However, he has won 6 events in his career, but the most recent being 3 years ago from the Call of Duty World League Pro League from Black Ops 4. So we've had, what, 3 games since then? So, you know, he needs to find something. He's still young. I think he's like 22 or something like that. So he's still got some time to, you know, in his career to bring it back into the positive light. But either way, on to our next player. Nero has yet to make his professional debut on a roster. He was signed to the Los Angeles Guerrillas Academy team, but never got called up to the main roster. Had an up and down year in Challengers before ending the year kind of strong with in the last 4 Challenger events, placing top 4 in all of them. I think he had 1 of each placement, if I remember correctly. But our next player, Capsidal, I actually don't know too much about this player at all, but what I could find was he bounced around Challengers basically all year long, placing as high as 5th, 6th, and that's all I can really find about him. I don't know anything about him. He's 19 years old, haven't really heard of him, haven't really seen him play at all, so don't really have too much information on him. But on to the coaching staff, we have the head coach being Zed. He is a retired pro player playing last year, mostly in Challengers before being called into action for Stage 1 Major through the Stage 3 Major, playing everything in between there for the London Royal Ravens. You know, a decent player, but never really was at the top, if you will. Then they have their general manager, Dens. I believe this is going to be an Australian. He is another retired pro player. Played last year in Challenges, but never really doing too much of anything down there before transitioning into a coaching role with the New York Subliners Academy. And then after they disbanded, then he joins up with Easter, who was a Challengers team, as a coach. So that's a lot of information, right? That's a lot. But here's the thing. Some thoughts on this team, initial thoughts. They could be so much better. And I know obviously I could say that, and they've been playing well in scrims, don't get me wrong, but they could have gotten 2 much better players to play alongside Methods and TJ. Now, some of those names you could include Diamond Khan, who was on the New York Subliners team last year for off and on throughout the year. You know, he definitely showed some promise. I think I would have picked him over Capsule, just given that he's never really done too much of anything. Maybe give, you know, some of these players a shot. Then you have Pentagram, which I believe is arguably one of the best players in Challengers the last couple of years. Exceed, who was with, I think it was either Toronto or Minnesota, one of those 2 teams where he actually showed some promise in their league. Classic, who had a really good end of last year playing with Seattle in the Pro League. You know, he took out Atlanta FaZe in Stage 5. Obviously, Seattle didn't make it to champs, but he played pretty well there. Spart, another good young player, played on, what, LAG, I think. He's now back with LAG as a substitute. But then the other thing, too, there's a lot of players that have been around, that haven't really gotten a good chance in a while. And I'd like to see these players at least get an opportunity to play a little bit. Maybe they don't make it, maybe they do. But some players on the lines of Pander, he's been around for a while. I haven't really seen him get too much of a chance. GotRX, you know, he made a case, I guess, if you will, for being one of the best players of, what was it, Cold War or was it Modern Warfare? I don't remember. But then he got dropped and he hasn't really done too much since, so he peaked really fast and then dropped really fast. Then you have Shawnee, who's been around forever, Assault, who's been around forever, Mochilla, who's been around forever, Royalty, who's been around forever, Exotic, and Brack. Brack was considered a really good player at one point. You know, these players, I'd like to see them get a chance. You know, I probably would have put almost all these players ahead of Capsule. Nero, he's got the potential there, but definitely would like to see some of those players get a chance, maybe as a substitute, maybe somewhere else. But these are just a few names, you know, worth a look. But like I said, maybe they do make it, maybe they don't. But it kind of seems like they're holding off on spending any real money to get players. Like, basically, you have to spend money on players in order to get any type of success. Look at Paris Legion. They've barely spent any money on players, and they've sucked every single year. They get the leftover players. They don't get any big names on their squad, and they just get players super cheap, and that's about it. But here's the big question of the day. Predictions. What do I think this team's going to do? Although they have been looking pretty decent in scrims. I will say that. They've been looking decent. But that's in scrims. That's online, and that's scrims. Can't really give too much to them just yet. I think they're a bottom 4 team. It's hard to predict a team like this. Like with 2 players that, you know, were starting players last year, got dropped, went to challengers, didn't really do too much. Then you have 2 rookies that are now going to be making their debuts that haven't really done much themselves. I don't know. It's really hard. I think they're bottom 4. They're definitely bottom 6. I can't predict them any higher than that. With the amount of talent that's at the top right now, I don't see them making top 6 or top 4. Top 8, maybe they sneak in eventually, but I don't think this team's going to do too much of anything. But here's the thing too. If this team does not play well, I'd like to see them try out different players. Especially given all those names that I said, plus a lot of challengers players. Give them a chance. Sign them as a substitute. Get them in there as a trial or a loan. I don't know what it would take to bring these players in. But if you're not winning and you are not looking good for the rest of the year, do something different. You got to try something to help you out. I don't want to say it, you know, change every match or every stage or every event, but something's got to change if teams aren't winning. Like, you either win or you don't. Obviously, there's going to be some bad teams, but if I'm not winning and I'm the coach or general manager, I'm like, all right, what can I do? Why is this team not winning? And then try to address that. Maybe I bring in some different players. Maybe I bring in more coaches. Maybe I try to look for a trade for, you know, players or something. I don't know how that works with, you know, contracts and everything. But I'd be really interested to see your guys' thoughts and comments down below. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy, hit the like button down below if you haven't yet. Or if you're brand new here, make sure to subscribe. Turn those post notifications on so you never miss an upload. And don't forget, you can always change your mind later. With all that being said, guys, we'll see you in the next one.